We have Dan Sobsey on the podcast today, the co-founder of Alfalfa. This one was really, really educational, talking about corporate infrastructure, how to build a team, how mindful and focused he is on doing the right things to build a successful food and beverage brand. I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as I do. Let's go. This week's episode is brought to you by Swevin, a co-working space in the heart of Hoboken with skyline views. We appreciate you, Swevin, for this awesome, sick podcast studio. Now, let's get into the podcast.
You know where you are!
This is the Outliers Podcast. Let's go!
I was born in the city, but my parents lived here. We lived here, I think, till I was like 8 years old. And then we moved to Weehawken, and then we moved back when I was done with high school. But my parents owned the grocery store for like 40 years here. 30 years. So, I was just like around here all the time.
It's cool that you've seen the journey of Hoboken and now also obviously being a massive part of Hoboken.
Trying to.
What has changed the most that you saw within Hoboken, like, over the years?
The most?
Yeah.
I think it's gone very commercial. Mm-hmm. I think you used to have a lot more mom and pop stores, and there wasn't Shake Shack. There was Johnny Rockets, right? I think
the first Blimpies.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, it's there's some nostalgia. I think when you grow up and you're playing on the dirt field, but now it's turf. And it's little things like that, but it's not like I still love it, and I think it's going to get better and better, but it's definitely different.
Why do you think? I feel like that's also the same way when it comes to all these plazas. You know what I mean? If you drive in the suburbs and all that, every plaza is literally the exact same. It's like Jersey Mike's, Dunkin' Donuts, or Starbucks, or Krispy Kreme, and then you have like an anchor of a supermarket, not like your family supermarket, right? It's like it's all these massive commercial. Do you feel like it's difficult for a mom and pop to survive without scaling?
No, I actually don't think so. Because I think it depends on what are your goals? And some people are very content. Most people are very content with, having a couple stores, 1 or 2 stores, and that's what you do, and you put your life and your love into it. I think that's how my parents were. They had 1 store. I remember I was young. I think I was like 10 years old, and you read you're a little kid, so you don't know too much. I remember my parents had 1 store, 3 people. They worked it every day. And I remember asking my dad, why don't we grow the business? We can open more grocery stores. And he said it wouldn't be the same. And that stuck with me for a long time. And, it's one of those things I think not everybody wants to be some giant conglomerate. People love that. People love to do what they love. And I think, you see a lot of that in Europe where you have these little, small little cafes run by the same family for 40 years. I don't think that's lost, but there's definitely there's a new wave, the millennial wave of businesses. I think a lot of people are thinking about scale and growing, and and you have the tools to do it. There's a lot of technology. There's all sorts of hiring tools now. You have every ounce of resource to help you manage a business effectively online, remotely. So it's not pen and paper accounting anymore. It's not, picking up a landline and asking where your employee is. It's not getting a beeper. So everything's connected. So it's a little bit, I think people see that and they say, okay, there's opportunity here.
And it's true, even with on a subtle thing of security with cameras, right? Like in a cash business, back in the day with cash business, man. Yeah. You couldn't control that cash register at all.
Right.
Now with the tow system, you can find out your numbers every single day, every single minute of the day.
Exactly.
But then it almost becomes using that technology. Next thing you know, your profit margin goes down, down, down because you're utilizing all of that technology, and then all of a sudden it feels like you have to open up more locations.
100%.
And I think that's what's scary about it. It's you want to create that infrastructure. You do want to have a marketing team because you're not posting every day with your locations. And I'm saying you yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. Yeah.
But before, you had to,
right.
And then back then it's the form of marketing was just putting coupons in a book.
Right.
And it's weird because you want to figure out a way to create authenticity and nostalgia while also making sure that you can sustain the business and also giving opportunities for your people to grow. I think the level of entry is so difficult.
100%.
That's what I have empathy for, and I think that's why another reason why I want to do this podcast too, is to talk to people like you and hear people's founding stories and to inspire others that like it's so difficult, but it can be done.
Yeah,
it can be done. You know,
100%.
And if people don't know Alfalfa, what is Alfalfa?
Yeah, I'd say so our mission is inspire joy through balance, and we're like an all-day healthy cafe. So we really focus on local sourcing, really high-quality ingredients, and delivering an experience with amazing hospitality where people feel a little bit better, when they leave. Like, wow, I don't know if it was the food, I don't know if it was the aesthetic, I don't know if it was the service. I think there's like a lot of small touch points that we do. Where we don't just focus on the food. I think hospitality is a very wide topic. It's food. It's the customer experience. It's what color, how dim, how bright are the lights. What color are the chairs. And I think we really focus on the details to deliver that all around experience. And that's kind of what's set us apart. I mean there's millions of restaurants out there, but for us, we focus on the very small details, and I think, that's separated us a bit from the pack and, giving that great experience.
And it shows, man, because everything you're saying, I genuinely feel it. And that's why, like, I'm inspired by Alfalfa. And I think all those little touch points, like you said, you feel it, but you can't identify what it is. And it's just, that's the food business, right? It's like 100,000 little details compiled. And if you can hit on 90% of them, you're winning.
100%.
Yeah. Have you always been detail-oriented like that? Like, who leads the charge in being that way?
Yeah, so I have three amazing co-founders. Andrew Arspide, he heads our brand and marketing division, so he focuses a lot on our look and feel. How do you feel when you walk in? What's the experience? Dan Landano, he is also another co-founder. He focuses a lot on like the back-end stuff of the business, finance, legal, HR, growth strategy. And then my younger brother, Ben, he's a general manager at our Uptown Hoboken shop, and he focuses on operations, helping develop like our product pipeline and keep our operations organized. So yeah, I mean that's the team. Like that's how we.
And what's your role?
Yeah, I focus a lot on the operations within the stores. I help with growth strategy, real estate, product, people leadership. We all have a hand in everything, but I think we focus on our lanes, and that's what's enabled us to be just very focused on growing responsibly, but also, making sure we don't lose sight of like what made Alfalfa great in the first place, and that that's always been very important to us.
So what did make Alfalfa what it is today? When did it start? When was the idea initiated?
Yeah, so I was living with my partner Andrew at the time in Uptown Hoboken. We were working jobs in the city, and we'd come home and we were living on 14th and Grand at the time, so a little tucked back in Hoboken, weren't too many options to eat. We'd end up going to the bar across the street for salads, trying to stay healthy as much as we can.
Which bar was that?
Carpe Diem.
the bar that's known for wings.
The best place.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't like an obvious thing. I think we were like, we had been traveling to California a lot. I had family there. He had lived there right after college. And with Dan Landano as well, we had bought a piece of real estate. So we were all, connected and involved together. But we really felt like there was nothing healthy to eat where we were that was, reminded us of that fresh, delicious food that we had in California. And in California, there's a farmer's market year-round. It's like a different cuisine. It's a lot more health and, sourcing oriented. And we felt like that was just missing. And so we started our idea on a whiteboard. And I remember we had this big vision. There was a lot of companies growing, raising millions of dollars of capital and big headlines, big PR releases. And we went into, we wanted to do that. Very naive, but we were little. We wanted to do this, and this was in 2018. Okay. And we went into this accountant's office in the MetLife building, who was a connection. And he looked at us, and he was like, "You guys are a joke."
Just straight as blunt?
He said something to that degree of... we had this like very detailed pro forma.
Yeah, you were like super naively confident and excited, and all of a sudden he just was just being a dick, just straight up.
I don't know. I don't think he was being a dick. I think he was being realistic, and I think he was telling us to eat our pride a bit and get your hands dirty first. And so, which I thought was great advice. So, we took that meeting, and I don't think we were upset. I thought we were pretty energized because we said, okay, maybe that's not the route we want to do. Maybe we don't want to raise a ton of capital and get investors and all these things. So, let's start small. So we reached out to the Garden Street Farmers Market, which used to be next to the CVS on 14th Street. And they had never had live food before. So this would be a brand new venture for them. Took a bit of convincing, but they ended up giving us a chance to open our first alfalfa there. And that was in 2018. So we had a very small menu, four salads. That's still on the menu to this day. And we would prep the food at a local commissary on 8th and Hudson, which is the church. And we would, do a few things at home, and we would wake up every single Saturday at 5 a.m., set up our tent, and we did that for 5 months straight. And there was, in the meantime, we were looking for real estate. I think we were every customer, I think, mattered at that time. And it was, we were the ones who were making the salads. We were the ones who were serving the customer. We were the ones breaking down, setting up the tent, cleaning the bowls. And so it just taught us a lot about, getting your hands dirty and understanding what it's going to take. And we were lucky enough to catch the eye of local restaurateurs Eugene and Joyce Flynn, who were retiring from Schnackenberg's, and they had a stand across from us. And it was actually my mother, doing her motherly duties, who went to them and said, the boys are looking for a space. Do you know of anybody? They're trying so hard. And he was like, I think something clicked. Like he saw, they both, Joyce and Eugene, they both saw us doing very well. And, we had a good line. We had a following. People were coming back. And we were busy, relatively speaking. At the scale of a farmer's market. Yeah. And we ended up talking to them, and they gave us an opportunity to do a pop-up in
I remember that, with the neon sign in the window.
Yeah. So, again, this is something that we built from scratch. We ended up onboarding onto the third-party platform. So we were like a effective ghost kitchen during the day from 9 to 5. And then from 5 to 9, when they closed their storefront, we would take it over and create a mock alfalfa. And this was very early on, where we had an assembly line behind the counter. Yeah. We had a drape. There's actually still hooks on the ceiling in the first store that used to hold the drape. And we did that every day for 2 months. And then, after that, we ended up getting the fortunate chance to take over the space in its entirety. And I think a lot of just that like hard work, and there was a lot of hope. I think there was a lot of optimism, and there was a lot of hope, and that taught us a lot about the mindset that it takes to start something from nothing. I mean, this business was born from the ashes, and I think, without, all of us, the founders, just having that grit, responsibility, and motivation, and without an amazing team around us. And we had only 2 to 3 prep cooks. We had friends helping us out. I just think it was very inspiring, seeing everybody believe in what you're trying to do, even though it was such a small thing. I mean, you're selling 60 to 70 orders per day.
And you were probably pumped at that time.
We were pumped. It was the best. I mean, people were buying something that you were offering, and then people would buy it again and again. And that started to create a little following, so that, when we ended up taking over the existing business, there was definitely some pushback about, the last nostalgic, diner in Hoboken closed. But I think
there was a lot of animosity almost in a weird way, right? I remember you took some screenshots of like certain comments, and did it inspire you when hearing those things?
Yeah, I think it was just a reminder. I think just like never forget where you came from, and stay humble. I think we weren't like, we're going to take it over and put that old place in the dirt. It was really more about, okay, what can we embrace from the past, and what can we introduce for the future, and what foundation can we build here now, so that we make our own mark on the community, so that, who knows, in 50 years when we end up passing the keys to the grandkids, someone else might be nostalgic about what was there before. So we ended up keeping the donuts on the menu, because when we took over the business, there was an existing baker, extremely talented, nice guy. He's still with us today. So we're like, let's keep donuts. And then we ended up rounding out the menu with breakfast burritos and coffee to really give that like full California experience. And I think we built out the salads a little bit. We have a local, Dan Lindano's friend was an architect in the city, and he hand-built our stadium seating by hand. He built the counter by hand. he was really instrumental in our design, and we kept the 100-year-old mirror in the space. We kept the floors, and I think people liked that. Like, we didn't want to. We were just embracing what was there, and ended up growing the teams little by little from there, working every single day, and that's kind of how it took off.
It's beautiful, man. I loved how I didn't realize how like spiritual you are about this business, and like that hospitality, that love, and that affection towards it honestly is expressed within your food. Because at the end of the day, that's what food is, right? Yeah. Like you said, you want to make sure that the food is an expression of that. And it makes you feel better about yourself when you're consuming it. And just you put all that love and energy into the salads, it feels that way. It's way more than that. It's in the experience of alfalfa. At what point of time did you, because at first it was a different design element when it comes to your branding, right? You remember that? It was like obviously you remember that.
Yeah.
It was the green and white.
Yeah.
What made you change the brand and like take it to the next level of where it is now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think in the beginning we didn't know what we were. And so as we were open, we started to see how people were reacting to our brand. What kind of pictures were they taking? How does the aesthetic look? What's our service model? We ended up actually intentionally, we used to have a front-facing assembly line during the pop-up. We ended up intentionally moving it to the back. And so that, now we have a full front of house, and our back of house, they're separate. And so I think it was very intentional to feel like a cafe, but to have the volume and energy of a quick service restaurant.
Yeah.
And so I think, as we rounded out the menu, as we, saw the energy and the values that we were building into the business, the branding and the logo didn't speak to what we were. So Andrew actually led the charge on that. He did an incredible job, and it was a process. We were thinking about who we were, what do we stand for, what do we believe in, what fun, energy, vibrant, alive branding can we build into this business, and that's where we landed. But and it's stuck with us since.
And when was that? How much longer after you built this?
I'd say it was probably, I don't know. It's probably a year after.
Was there anything in particular that made you guys be like, we have to change?
I think we just wanted to refresh. I think, we always have had ambitions to be a larger company, and I think just, very black and white, looking at our logo, we're like, this is not going to be a national thing. Like this feels like we're still in the farmers market days. And so it was really like a growing up process. And, we ended up flipping all of our assets, our website, the Instagram, the branding in the stores for the bowls and the cups. And people really received it very well. And, I think brand is, on the surface level, it was about aesthetic, but it was really more about the evolution of alfalfa into what it is today with the, rounded out menu offerings, our daily process for, getting the team together, talking about our values. It was a big growth step.
How did you put down, how did you know what stages to do? Did you work with like a marketing agency or anything like that? Like, because that's like very high level marketing brand, creating a marketing brand book takes a lot of time and love and care into that.
Yeah.
Did you guys have that experience beforehand? Did you deal with an agency? Like, how did you go about that?
Yeah, Andrew was very experienced. He comes from a background in sport partnerships and marketing from AG, but he led the charge on that. I think we worked with a local designer, but he was the instrumental one deciding on the logo. We all had our input, so I think ultimately we trust each other, and that was the one that he felt strongly about, and we ended up backing him, and it was just a great decision.
Were your roles easily identifiable in the beginning?
I think we gravitated towards them. It was definitely messy, and it's still not perfect, but I think it was, we started to learn each other's superpowers. I think, transparent communication, being very honest with each other about it. We do like a quarterly retreat where we huddle up, we talk about, where the company's going, what have we learned over the last quarter, what do we want to achieve, and then we actually give each other like 3 things we're doing well and 3 things we can improve. And that's actually, it can be uncomfortable to receive that feedback. But I think if your delivery and the way you deliver constructive feedback is, if it's, as long as it's useful, and I think you have that trust in the other person that it's valuable, then it's great. And it makes you a much better leader and a much better, founder at the end of the day.
That's awesome, man. Do you, when the quarterly retreats, is just you guys, or is it your families? What do you guys, or is it your whole team?
Yeah, we in the past we brought the families. Now that we have kids, it's a little hard. But most recently we did it at Mission 50 in Hoboken. So it's really just like 1 or 2 days hunkering down. There's an agenda. We try to just copy paste the agenda because it's working. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And it's something we do. We do founders only, and then we bring in GMs and our chief operating officer David. He also comes in as well. So, and then that's more operations and restaurant level focused.
What's the agenda? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's pretty simple, honestly. It's like we have goals every quarter, and there's a 2-year plan, there's a 5-year plan, and we see, we check in on our progress on the goals from last quarter. Some of them get done, some of them don't. We see what we need to move to the next quarter, and making sure that those goals fit into the larger plans that we have, and that's it. And we each have our own categories. But I think something that we've learned over time is that when we used to do these meetings, we used to list 50 things out there and this giant PowerPoint. And honestly, my list last quarter was 2 to 3 things. And because we know that those few things, obviously there's micro tasks and things that come up, but those 2 to 3 large initiatives we know will drive 80 to 90% of the performance in the business. So it's like simplifying what we're doing, but making sure that has a bigger impact.
What's honestly, dude, what I'm really, I'm not shocked by, but it makes sense on where you guys are headed. You guys are the foundation of the next. I don't want to say your competition, but Sweetgreens, man. I really see you guys as like the founding.
I appreciate it.
Like I've been saying it since 2018, watching from afar, and it's really inspiring. And it's amazing that you guys are working on this at such a high level. How did you get yourself out of the weeds? Did you always know you wanted to scale up and work on these higher level things?
Yeah, I think we've always had ambitions to be a bigger brand. I think that was, the reason why we opened our second store in Los Angeles is let's try to grow the hard way. Let's figure it out, how to operate. There was personal reasons involved. We love Los Angeles. There was a great opportunity. My partner was moving out there. But it forced us to understand the business at a higher level. How do we hire great people? How do we retain great people? How do we build a great team culture so that, you're going to have up and down days, but on those down days, how are people resilient? What are the building blocks? It's all about foundation, I think, at the end of the day. Like, if you build the basics in your business correctly, operations, your culture, HR admin, financial, legal, your prep processes, your operational processes, your ordering lists, if you get the basics right and you maintain them and you pay attention to them, I think that's what gives you the leverage to focus on other things. Because if you don't have the foundations, you're always going to be playing whack-a-mole. Like, if we don't have a prep list and we have a new salad and one of our managers can't order pineapple, guess who's going to do that? That's going to be me, Andrew, or Dan going into our system, putting it in. But now there's a process so that things like that don't slip through the cracks, and we can focus on initiatives that are going to drive a lot more value. And I think, that comes from spending time in the restaurants. Just because we're focused on, 2 to 3 larger goals per quarter doesn't mean we don't obsess about what actually happens in the 4 walls. And we're there almost every day. We look around. I think we're not actively working, but I think we're, giving feedback. We're positive reinforcement. I just think it's very important to still understand what's going on, but at the same time, just be focused on 2 to 3 goals.
Like, what would be a goal? What would be an example of a goal that you're working on a quarterly goal?
Yeah, I think validating recipes. Let's do an audit of our recipes and let's make sure they all make sense and they're all current. We just did that. Actually, on next Wednesday, we're flying in our kitchen managers from LA. All the kitchen managers from the East Coast are going to meet in our downtown store, which we're going to close. We're actually going to do a recipe audit and training. So we've done an audit. We're going to reintroduce and reinforce these recipes, and we're going to create the new standard. And that standard is better than it was before. And we're not afraid to close the store for a day to reinforce that standard to make sure that the food tastes that much better going forward. So little things like that. That's something that you don't see, but it's something that we're going to do.
Yeah, it's extremely important. Why? Because we want to make sure that the salad, the West Coast salad I'm enjoying in Hoboken, downtown is the same as uptown. And if I go all the way to California, I want to experience the exact same thing.
Exactly.
What would be so when you're doing that, like what's increasing the standards, right? It's like, what are you guys going to be doing to increase the standards of the recipe development? Are you guys weighing things? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think it's making sure the recipes are written professionally and correctly, and that we have a template for them. So we have help on, we have a recipe style guide. We have all the components that you need, the yields, the measuring, whether it's weight-based or volumetric, the steps, and making sure that people are following them and making sure that the product's coming out consistent across all these micro teams in our training. If it's different, someone wasn't following the recipe or something went wrong, and then that means we probably need to revisit this recipe. But we've done the work manually of like testing these recipes out and making sure they're consistent and keeping that style guide going forward for all new products. That's been I think that's been a huge unlock for us for the consistency. It's like I always say, it's redundancy and then it's reinforcement. You can't be redundant without reinforcing very often. Anything, front of house procedures, back of house, procedures, line, expo. You just have to consistently reinforce the standard and hold accountability to the leaders managing those.
How do you do that in regards to your customer service side of things? Because what's so amazing about Alfalfa is the consistency of the product, but also you have some people there, everyone there, that when I go into an Alfalfa, you can tell they're enjoying their day-to-day at Alfalfa.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking to the customers when you walk in the door. It's like, hey, what's going on? What would you like? Do you guys need anything else? If I'm sitting down, they're it's as if they are also the owner. And that's a beautiful thing. I think it's the most difficult part. As you see within the hospitality game, as you scale up, the customer service component almost gets erased because you're so focused on your day-to-day ops, your P&Ls, blah, 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 and you're watching from afar. Mm-hmm. But the customer service is so difficult to cultivate. What do you think is different about Alfalfa than the rest, and what are you doing to create that within the experience? Within your team?
No, it's a great question. I think, we have this thing called the Daily Sprout where a manager...
It's a coupon there.
Thank you, yeah. The team will lead in the morning or afternoon. When the time is available, they'll lead the team through, the service value of the week. And we actually have these service values that are crafted towards the perfect customer experience that we want to deliver. Those values are reinforced every week. And we talk about them. Like I said, reinforcement. We're reinforcing those service values and making sure that people are paying attention. Like our staff, they're amazing. Not everyone's going to have a great day.
Of course.
And I think, being understanding of that, but at the same time, just making sure that, this is what we believe in. And like, if you work here, we hope you believe in that. And I think we look for people that believe in our values and want to grow and see what the potential is in this company. And that's helped us a lot. I think, retain talent, giving people career opportunities to grow into other assets of the business. And, it's like you just have to observe. You have to be very, I would say you have to understand that you can't please everybody. And you have to stick to your core of what you believe in as a company to make sure that the staff is always aligned with that. And everyone has a different way of doing that. Like Ritz-Carlton, they have their service values, and there's 12 non-negotiable things that for every guest, this is what has to happen. We have something similar to that, but it's still a work in progress. We're not perfect at it.
Of course, but it's always an ongoing thing. Perfection's impossible, but why not try, right?
Yeah.
Keep on pushing each and every day. What's an example of something, a Sprout Daily, that you guys are doing? What's something within the past few weeks there was a focus point that you talked about with the server, within your customer service?
Yeah. Never have your back towards the door. It sounds simple, but it's the worst experience ever when a customer walks in and, our staff is facing the wrong way. It might be just a small little blip of, maybe they were filling the lemonade or refilling something, but I think it's simple. It's just, don't be wandering off and looking the other way. The guest is that way, and they need to be accommodated and taken care of. But it's a reminder. I think, people forget sometimes. And,
absolutely.
And that's okay. And, we can be understanding, but we just want people to know that that first impression when you walk into an Alfalfa is very important. And that's a piece of that.
Yeah. And if something's reminded like that in the beginning of the week, subconsciously you don't even realize, you're not doing it maliciously to be rude, but you're like, oh, wait a second, we just talked about this. I gotta turn the other way. Or like, hey, if I hear the door open, immediately turn around. Don't just continue having a conversation.
100%, exactly.
You know?
It's easy to like finish a conversation, or it's easy to, finish pouring the coffee, but if you're pouring the coffee and it's going to take a bit and the customer's walking in, you can finish that later because that customer is there and they need to be welcomed and taken care of first.
How do you think of these things on a week-to-week basis? It's just something like, are you like, while that week is happening, you're seeing it happening in front of you because you're there, you're watching and you're observing and you're just being like, oh, this is something else we need to focus in on. Is that what you're doing? Like, how do you something so small like that? That is just that's like a Danny Meyer detail, dude. And I mean that in a complimentary way, for real. Like, what makes you think in that way?
I think it's trend-based. When we have our weekly general manager meetings, we'll get a feel for what's going on, and more or less, I think it just kind of goes in order. Like, we don't have, because they're all very closely related, where unless something is, pressing, we'll talk about it. But in general, we'll just go in order and allude to that. But I think our general managers are excited about it. I think it's given them a platform to hold the staff accountable and energize them too. Like, hey guys, this is what we believe in, and you can make this customer's day by doing this very small thing. Like, you have the authority to give out a free donut today. You have the authority to sample as many lemonades as you want. It's just empowering the staff to make those decisions so that they can make a genuine connection with the customer. I think sometimes you get into penny pinching and don't give out samples here and don't do that. We don't want to give free rein, but I think there's guidelines that there's little things that we can do that will
help the experience.
To just help the experience, and that pays for itself.
And I think it's also, momentum could be anything, right? Momentum could be growth. Momentum could be growth in regards to your revenue, your profit margins, your momentum when it comes to your social media, like viewing count and follower count. There's also momentum within the customer service side of things.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm kind of realizing with what you're saying, is because you guys created that foundation of what you were discussing, and then now it's not just you creating these ideas, it's also your team internally, because they want to bring something to the table. Like, hey, Dan, I noticed this. I want to add this to the team meeting, and feeling like they're taking pride in their day-to-day.
100%.
And I think you also touched on this, and I think it's well said, is it's right now a lot of people are like, it's so difficult to find staff, right? But you have to find an opportunity, especially in the food and beverage game. You're not trying to create a job. You're trying to create a career. And that's what you need to be doing to sustain your growth. Does that make sense for you, what you're doing? It seems that way, which is like creating a career rather than just a day-to-day job.
Yeah, I think we try. I think we try to create like a real career path. And again, we're not perfect in doing that, and but at the end of the day, there is a path to general manager, and that's what we want to share. And hopefully, team members who aren't general managers can see, what the general manager is doing every day and be motivated to potentially have that role one day.
As you've been scaling up, right? So we obviously have Hoboken, which was, what year was the first one in the when you actually had a brick and mortar?
It was March 2019.
2019. And then your second location was how much further out?
1 year later, peak of COVID.
Wow. It must have been scary, man.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Not only was it separating the operations completely and dividing your team in half, but being in Cali like that. And where in Cali again? Santa Monica,
Santa
correct?
Monica, right on Main Street. One of the best food streets in the world, I think.
Really?
I think so.
It's a big statement, dude.
Yeah.
Now I need to go there and check it out. Why do you say that?
I just think there's a lot of creative flair there, and the businesses, it's very, smaller independent businesses. And just like the energy, and there's a little community garden across the street from us. The sun's out every single day. You can tell a lot of the brands and the products there are very intentional. And I think, there's a lot of sourcing from the local farmers market. And you just get that, feel of like, wow, these, this is like, there's a lot of creativity. There's people who are really focusing on the right things here, and it's inspiring. Like, I love walking through Santa Monica, Greater LA, and seeing what other brands are up to. It's different than here.
In what way is it different?
I think the cuisine's a little different. I think it's closer to the source, so naturally you're going to have a little bit difference in seasonality and ingredient variation, and even like small things like presentation and brand. There's differences. So it feels like brighter out there, whereas here and a lot more laid back. With the service model, we have less online orders. We have more dine-ins in California. It's probably just a byproduct of where we are because we're close to the beach. But yeah, it's different. I think it feels here faster paced. There, a little bit more relaxed, focus on like that one-to-one
experience.
Yeah.
What do you feel like Jersey's doing better than there?
Jersey? That's a good question.
Or East Coast?
East Coast, what do we do better? I don't know if we do anything better. I think there's a higher volume of... I think there's actually a higher volume of people discovering us in Los Angeles, whereas I think here, we're really known in the community. So not that there's less to prove, but we're like such a known entity in Hoboken. But I think in Los Angeles, it's pretty exciting because we get people from all over the world, and that's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Whereas, Santa Monica, Los Angeles is a destination around the world. I think as great as Hoboken is, it's not Soho, New York City.
Yeah.
So you just get like such a different range of customers. I think that's very interesting.
In regards to the actual food scene, what's the difference of the food scenes from East Coast to West Coast? Besides, like, the sort, like, is there any, like, experience that's a little bit different? That's what I kind of more meant.
Oh, experience?
Yeah. Or even the restaurant scene, the culinary scene, not just particularly Alfalfa. How's the culinary scene different? Because I'm born, raised in Jersey, and I feel like I'm in my little bubble sometimes. Yeah. That I'm just, like, hibernating here. And I'm always, like, I've only been to California once, so I went to San Fran.
I see.
For, like, 3 days.
Got it.
So I never really experienced Cali.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing different than, like, New York City or Jersey?
I feel like there's more categories. I think there's like, I don't know. I think there's like more categories in food. I think there's like a wider range of options, and people like doing more fusion concepts and really elevating like what's inside existing concepts. I wouldn't say it's like too different, but I think the layouts are different. There's a lot of outdoor dining because it's a year-round place. A lot of sourcing. Yeah, it's just different. You drive everywhere. You don't walk anywhere. So that's different, right? So like small little details like that. You valet your car when you go there. It's just different, but in a good way.
What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest challenges you faced while scaling your business?
The biggest challenges? I think what keeps me up at night is team culture, preserving that, and making sure that we are focusing on the right things. Which we do. I think we focus on the right things and operational consistency and making sure what made us great in the beginning, we never lose touch of that. But as you grow, I think there's always the connotation that brands get worse as you grow. We actually hope to do the opposite, where we want to improve our service. We want the product to be better. We hope to achieve some economies of scale where we can achieve those things. But you never want your staff to feel like just a cog in a wheel. And it's very easy as one store or two stores to be very personable and know every staff's cousin's name and, play with their dog and do the small things. But as you grow, that relationship becomes a lot less personal because you physically can't be in many places at once. But how do you keep that small, that vibrant culture feel? We do two holiday parties a year. Most recently we did, on the East Coast, we did it at Tipsy Tie-Dye, where we had invited as many team members that were, wanted to join, and we did like a tie-dye event, and, we talked about how proud we were of all the achievements and, where we hope to go. So, keeping those touch points and making sure we never lose sight of like what made us special in the first place.
And it's cool too. You also did at the park.
Yeah, the soccer game.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's stuff like people talk about, like, oh, I can't wait for the soccer game next year. And, it's just fun. It brings people together, and, we're in the people business. So, they can learn from each other at different stores, and we have our challenges bi-coastally. We can't get everyone together, but as much as we can to keep that great culture. That's like very important to us.
How do you go about finding your new location? So obviously, if you can just go through the storyline of not the storyline, but the timeline of your new location. So Hoboken was the first one, Santa Monica was the second in 2020. What was the third? Right now you have 4, correct?
5.
5.
Yeah, I don't know if I can recall the years, but
that's fine.
It went Uptown Hoboken, Santa Monica, Jersey City. Then we opened Central LA right near Larchmont Village. Just opened downtown Hoboken a few months ago, and we're going to be opening Princeton in the fall.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
How big is the Princeton location?
It's actually 3,000 square feet.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was an existing space, and right on Nassau Street. Yeah, we're very excited. I think it's another challenge, and it's something that we're looking forward to. 60 miles away from here, but again, keeping that culture, making sure the product is consistent, building a great team. That's mission priority number one. We feel like we have a pretty strong foundation with the systems that we have to move it on down 60 miles away. It should work for the most part. I think some things will break, some things will need to be updated to really match that, distance. But for the most part, I think we're really just relentlessly focused on hiring the right people.
How are you going about having 3,000 square feet? It's like almost double the one in Hoboken. Are you just adding more seating? Is there anything that's different experiential-wise, or just really just having more of a comfortable seating environment?
Yeah, I think this one has a bigger kitchen.
Okay.
Historically, our kitchens have been a little tight. And, just
capture growth with that, like with sustaining revenue almost in a way?
Yeah, I think just making sure we have the infrastructure to support potential sales is very important. I think, it sucks when you walk in and the walk-in box is overflowing, or it's very tough for delivery drivers to put things in the walk-in box and receive orders. It stresses people out. Things get messy. It wasn't our first choice to have that much space, but I think with it being predominantly kitchen and because the university nearby, we definitely want to make it like a fun space to hang out and just do what we do.
But how do you go about finding new locations? Like, how do you identify new markets you want to be hitting? Is there any thought process that goes into that?
Yeah, there is. I think we look for demographic, the basic demographic data. I think there's also that intangible element of when you see a space, can you actually envision an alfalfa here? What's the foot traffic look like? What's the co-tenancy look like? Is this a place where we're going to have a lot of repeat business? We tend to just we've been successful in places where people can walk to us and where it feels like a downtown. So we hope to replicate that going forward.
Is there any brands what brands inspire you?
Brands that inspire me? There's a lot of them. I love Erewhon. They're based out of Los Angeles. They're actually like a premium grocery store. And they also do prepared foods. It's kind of like a milled down version of Whole, size-wise, smaller than Whole Foods. There's only 9 of them. But everything is organic. They have, they're very great with presentation. All of their smoothies and juices are color coordinated. Everything's organic. They're very creative on their hot food bar and their cold food bar. And I think, they're always on the cutting edge of collaborations and staying current with the new food trends. And it's just an incredible experience every time I go. Everyone's very friendly and there's just a different energy. I'd say that's number one. A grocery store.
And how about, because you're so, you understand the higher level macro responsibilities of C executives. Is there any C executive or entrepreneur out there that you always, you would love to sit down with and talk to, or anyone that you always, anytime they're doing an interview, you make sure you listen to them?
It's a really good question. I think I'd have to think about that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think I idolize anybody. I think, I read a lot, and I don't think anybody stands out in particular. I mean, I think what...
or corporate infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a good question. In general, I think In-N-Out Burger. I feel like that is a really impressive... that family that started In-N-Out Burger, the fact that they've kept it that consistent... kind of closed off.
Yeah, it's family owned and operated.
Yeah.
They've rejected all private equity.
Yeah, for 60, 70, 80 years. I think that's fascinating. And I'm actually a lot more fascinated by businesses that have been around for 100, 200 years than the new hot, sexy startup.
Fair.
I think there's been, I don't know, I just think building a business that lasts multiple generations, it's incredible. I read about the Ferrero Rocher family that started this chocolate business in the 1800s. And to me, that's interesting because I want alfalfa to last generations. And I don't want to be some high, flying growth startup that, raises capital, exits, and all this stuff. I want to grow this. We want to grow this responsibly, and seeing businesses that last the test of time is really what we look up to.
How do you keep the blinders on, man? Because I feel like there's probably so many people that come to you with like a checkbook or telling you to franchise or doing this or like, hey, look at this location, come over here. Like, because I get offered all the time. So I couldn't imagine for you guys as well. Like you guys, there's definitely people knocking on your door to invest or, probably get in the mailbox like, hey, I have a new location over here. You guys have to check it out. But I feel like you're very grounded and just calm and just being like blinders on and we know our mission. Like how do you do that? Is it a consistent process with that?
I think the relationship with my founders, I think it keeps us all grounded because we're all unified in one goal. And I think we're pretty good about when things look like they're veering off course or we're getting distracted. All right, let's dial it back a little bit. I joked when I sent you a text saying, I prefer to stay in my dark cave, but as a favor. Yeah. I don't know. I'm an introvert at the end of the day, and each of us founders have different styles, but I think we enjoy and we love what we do, and we see just such massive potential. So it's just a consistent reminder to just stay focused on those goals. And there are a lot of distractions out there, but we're never really enticed by them. I think because it's distracting, and if it's distracting, it's when you show up to that meeting next quarter and you didn't do your things, you're actually clawing the business down. And I don't know, it's not embarrassing. Like it's okay, things happen, life gets busy, but just having that accountability with each other, and it's like we love what we do. So why would we go focus on some other nonsense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than just like creating another. Is there ever a time you're thinking to yourself like, I would love to do a different type of concept?
I thought about it, but no, like hard no, actually. I think like there's a lot of potential within Alfalfa and something that we want to focus on, and it's just been such a labor of love to build it, for us up to this point. Maybe one day, but I think we're just so focused on this that there's nothing else matters.
I love that. If you could go back to the farmers market days, is there any advice you would give yourself?
Advice I'd give myself? Mm-hmm. Stay more focused and do less. I think, I said this before, back in the day when, we didn't have meetings, like quarterly meetings, we didn't set goals, we were just doing, which is, natural in the beginning of any concept. But I think, just putting the focus on less things that drive more impact. Not to say we would be farther along, but it'd probably save, me some stress and would just, help our relationships. But in general, we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, some of that adversity is what helped you guys get realigned and focused. Yeah. Figure out these 100%. Quarterly goals and like, all right, this was a problem. How do I think what you've done a beautiful job with and everything you're saying right now is anytime a problem arises, you're not trying to put a Band-Aid on and you're trying to solve it to not happen again. Yeah.
And it's simplicity too. Like at the end of the day, if we set a very simple framework within our business, we're a restaurant business at the end of the day, a hospitality restaurant business. We don't own hotels. We don't do some crazy catering thing. We operate X number of locations. This is the framework. Let's stick to it and let's look at it and revise it. But, we just keeping things simple is very, very important because it's very easy to get distracted, and distraction just, creates lack of focus, and you ended up losing sight on what's important. For us, hopefully we can roll out the goal is to roll out a new seasonal salad once a quarter. It would be a shame if we didn't, right? That's just the basics that we have to do. So it's, maintaining that is very important.
Who's helping with menu development?
Yeah, we work with actually a friend of mine from college. Her name's Carly. She was actually a recipe developer at BuzzFeed Tasty for many years, and she has an incredible background in prenatal and postpartum nutrition, and she's based in Los Angeles. So she's very plugged in, helping us, curate our menu and be, going out of the box a little bit. Like, hey guys, we did the alfalfa salad that had pepperoni and peaches. I think, a bit of a wild combo, but people have really,
it works,
and it's been great.
What's the long-term vision of Alfalfa?
I think we want to grow. Definitely want to grow. We want to add more stores. And I think doing that responsibly is extremely important. So, we want to add more. The short answer is we want to add more stores. I think, how we get there is responsible growth, whether that's, raising more capital at some point, tapping the debt markets, reinvesting profits. We're pretty open to it, but, just making sure that any space that we take we have to have very strong conviction in it. We wouldn't sign something that was like, way off on a side street or was a gamble. It's like, we just want to be calculated and make the right moves, especially at this scale. I think, when you're 50, 100 stores, sure, you can, try something else, a different format. But for now, we're really just trying to create that same alfalfa while tying to the local community, embracing what's there, but making sure the core stays the same.
While you're creating all of these different recipes and menu development and all that, and you're very in tune in the food culture and the food trends, is there any food trends right now happening? You're just like, I just don't get it. Like, why is that a trend?
Food trends. I was never big on like the vegan. I'm not a big fan of like processed meats.
Yeah.
We have pepperoni on our menu, but we source it locally. It's like a high-end pepperoni. But like vegan butter and things like that. I was just never really into it. And I think as alfalfa grows, we want to take more of that wholesome, nutritious approach to our food. So I think next year, we'll see a lot more menu items that go back to that of just like, from the ground, not processed, local, organic as much as possible. That's very important.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's like more of like the whole food diet. And if you don't want to eat meat, that's fine.
Yeah.
Instead of finding like some artificial biochemically created meat. It's like,
exactly.
If you don't want to eat meat, just don't eat meat.
Right.
'Cause that's actually not even good for you.
Right. Exactly.
Some of those like processed meats and all of that.
It's like, if you can't pronounce the ingredient, probably don't eat it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What's missing in Hoboken, man? You've been in Hoboken forever. You're seeing the market and stuff. What's missing in Hoboken?
What's missing in Hoboken? Does it have to be food or can it be anything?
Anything.
We need a movie theater.
Yeah.
Yes. I think my wife and I love watching movies and, it's like it's a community. I feel like every town has a movie theater,
I feel like the movie theater model has to be altered in some type of way, though.
Maybe, yeah.
Like honestly, I think AMC was onto something, and they just became just gross.
Yeah.
But I think something incorporating the food and beverage play into a movie theater, but doing it on a high level, could be really, really successful.
Yeah.
It's almost like an experiential thing.
I also think we need a Christmas market. Just see, you've been to Europe and all these towns, they have these 60 stands, even Bryant Park in New York City. Every winter they set up, curated local goods. They have like a nice stand. I think that'd be really cool if, they did it in a park and bring local vendors together, make it like a destination. It always gives you like the, warm and fuzzies.
It definitely does. And the community side of things,
right?
It's
great, yeah.
I feel like that's like another, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like it used to be so much more when we first started, because we started around the same time, like more community driven.
Yeah.
With the food, the restaurateurs and all of that.
Yeah.
That's
great. Yeah.
And I think now it's like you said, getting a little too commercialized. I think we need to get back to reconnecting and doing all those different things.
Yeah.
But I agree about like the vendor side, the Christmas market. That's a great idea. We should reach out to Robbie. Sponsored by Alfalfa and Obagel. A tradition we always do within the Outliers podcast, we end up with 3 different questions. And one of them is, what is the most impactful advice you've ever been given?
Most impactful advice I've ever been given.
Or a piece of advice that you always remind yourself of.
I think try not to take business too seriously. And I think at the end of the day, what's most important is like your family, your loved ones, and your friends and your relationships, and like yourself, your health, and how you feel day to day. And it's very easy to stress out about that 1-star bad review, or this happened in the restaurant, or this project didn't work out. But just like zooming back and just being grateful, I think like gratitude and like being grateful for like what you have and being happy about where you are. And if you can improve it, great. But just like stepping outside the box a bit. It helps keep us grounded as founders all the time. Just like something funny, something bad, if something happens, just laugh it off or fix it.
Yeah.
It's really it's just a restaurant. It's not a life or death, ER hospital. It's a food service business.
I love that, man.
Yeah. My wife's a nurse, so she deals with a lot of, difficult situations, and it just puts things into perspective. Like, wow, you had someone who was like terminally ill, and we forgot chicken in this guy's wrap. And so, like, I want to fix that, and we're going to have a procedure to, like, make that better. But it's not the end of the world, and I shouldn't, like, take out all my anger on the cook or the line person who did that. Like, it's all right. Like, we're going to fix it at the foundation, and it's all good, and we'll move on. Yeah.
That's so true, man.
Yeah.
Because you could I'll lose sleep over, like, having someone having a bad experience, a bad review, or like, something like that. But it's true. It's like...
Man, as long as you fix it, like, it's going to be fine. But if it happens many times, then you got to step back and be like, all right, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But in general, like, there's nothing like, there's like no rocket science here. It's just, making sure that, the food's good, it's accurate, and there's a great experience. Other than that, it's kind of like, just do your thing.
How has being a father now changed you? Because you're time, huh?
Yeah, I think I just like, again, I think my list of things to do got shorter, because I just, I want to spend as much time as I can with her and my family. And so making sure that whenever I am not home and I'm at work, I'm spending that time, doing the most value add and the most important thing at that time. It's not always pretty, and I definitely, like, get distracted on random days and whatnot. But yeah, more in general, I think just it's like narrowed my focus even more.
Yeah, you're working smarter rather than working harder. And then also, I think the key weakness to leadership is busyness. Meaning, like, just getting in the weeds of things and making sure you're working on, like, high impactful things within your business.
Exactly.
Time within your family.
Yeah.
How do you structure your day to day?
Day to day, I like to wake up early. Usually like to just, been going to the gym in the morning sometimes. Sometimes I'll just, like, walk around the house, jump on a Wall Street Journal, read a little bit. And then I pack it up. I go to the stores, pop in, sometimes local cafe, check on, like, my to-do list. And, usually, there'll be a few calls during the day, ops services, product, finance. I'll join those when I can, talk to the GMs. And then, I usually block, like, a few hours to just focus on, like, those goals that I set for myself and how it relates back to the team, making sure that I'm, holding my end of the bargain for when, we meet again next quarter. And then I try to get home by, like, 5 or 6.
Is there a way that do you structure your week, like, every Sunday for that week, or how do you structure your day to day so it becomes organized? Is there any particular way, or you always have just time blocking?
Yeah, I'm truthfully, I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself, like, that organized. I just don't put a lot of stuff on my calendar, so I don't tie myself down. I'm very selective about, what meetings I agree to, what meetings I attend, where I spend my time. And I think having a bit of an open canvas on my calendar has given that flexibility to, like, focus on what I need to do. I think before I used to take every sales call, every meeting, this coffee, this, that. Those are important, obviously, from time to time. And, I don't want to, like, put myself in a cave. But, I love the flexibility of having, like, an open calendar and just being able to think and focus on our work.
If you could have a meal with 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Tim Duncan was my athlete idol growing up.
Spurs, power forward?
Yeah,
I feel like that makes sense for you, dude.
It does.
Just calm, composed,
Yeah.
Zen-like, but just super mechanical,
Yeah.
little backboard action.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan. Okay. Fundamentals.
Yeah, he was like, people called him boring, but I was like fascinated by his game. I was like, wow, how is this guy so good by just like making shots and I definitely would like him is a good one. Kobe Bryant, I think, another athlete. I think not for like his basketball skill, but more so like his mentality. I think, just like, I don't know, obviously he has that, like, I feel like he's like the OG laser focus, Mamba mentality, of course. And then the third, the third is a good one. I'm not sure. It's a good one. I don't know. Usually I say athletes, but I'm trying to think of somebody else that like I really would love to meet. I think Steve Jobs, pretty cliche, but again, I think it's like amazing to, like just to see like somebody who built probably the most revolutionary products in the history of humanity. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, the man behind the iconic brand.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And yeah, I don't usually gravitate towards like food and beverage. I think there's a lot of people that like I look up to, but I think I came from finance, and all of us never came from food service, so we had that open canvas, I think, to do things a little differently and be afraid to like rip up the playbook a bit. And while we have a professional who helps, he's our COO, he helps manage the business day to day, but and helping professionalize things and make them like more restaurant mechanical. I think there's a lot of things that we do within the walls that have been inspired by people not in food.
I love it, man, and I really genuinely appreciate you being a part of this podcast, dude.
Oh, I'm happy to do it.
For real, man, because I know that you like to operate behind the scenes and you're facilitating on a very, very high level. And this podcast, this episode in particular, is, I think, is the highest level within the food and beverage game that people don't realize. You're operating at a different level, bro. And for real, man. And I think you are
appreciate it.
If people that don't know your brand, they will know very, very soon within like nationwide. I've always said that about you guys. You guys operate differently, and you're operating at a very high level. And it's really inspiring to hear your story. It motivates me, man. For real, because you're doing things that I don't even do. And I think I'm operating at a high level, and that's why I do this podcast, because I'm always trying to learn. I'm trying to be a student of the game, and you're doing things that aren't ordinary, and you're focusing on those details, and it's inspiring. And I think that's why Alfalfa is operating at such a high level, and it's only going to be a fucking rocket ship, dude.
No, I appreciate it, and obviously very grateful for the opportunity. And Andrew, Dan, and Ben also said hello,
of course.
And also we love what you guys are doing, and it's also inspiring. You were one of the first local like entrepreneurs we ever met with, and I think seeing you with your business and like, wow, we want to do that. Like, you actually had part in that, and I think it matters. Like, it did matter. Meeting a few times and seeing what you were doing, and I think you guys are also just on a great path, and obviously very impressed and inspired. So it's likewise. Like, we're not. We definitely don't see ourselves on like such a high tier, but I think. We do have big ambitions, and we're going to take it like a day at a time and see what happens.
Hell yeah, Dan. I appreciate you, big dog. Thank you, bro.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
My man.